Hello and welcome to GDS 102 Introduction to Photoshop with the Makerspace Access Pass. Here in Stage 1, I'm going to be showing you the very basics of Photoshop, which means opening up the program and sort of covering what the different panels in the workspace look like. Let's get started. So first, I'll come down to the bottom left corner of my screen, click on the Windows icon. This process will be a little different for you if you're on a Mac. And we have Photoshop right here. Go ahead, click on that to open it. Give it a second to load. All right, so after Photoshop loads, the first thing you'll see, if it's your very first time opening Photoshop, then you'll see this screen with all the new updates in the latest version. We can just ignore this for now, so I'm gonna go ahead, X out of it. And then the first thing that you'll see normally, if it's not your first time opening Photoshop, is the home screen. So here you can see you have the option to create a new document, to open a previous project, and over here you'll see all your recents as well as some tutorials provided by Photoshop. I'm just going to go ahead and click on Create New. After you click on Create New, the new document window will open in the middle of your screen. At the top of the new document window, you can see a panel that has all of the different presets for different kinds of projects. So print has the standard tabloid, letter forms, A4, all the stuff like that. Web has different screen sizes. Mobile is built for phones, obviously. But if you're following along with this tutorial, just go ahead and click on Print. You'll see in this main panel your document presets, all of the different presets that go with printed projects. And you can also search more on Adobe Stock down here. And then the main panel within the new document window is this one over here on the right, where you can control all of your documents customization options. So here is where you can name the document. I'm just going to leave it Untitled 1. This is fine because really I'm going to keep all of these letter settings the same before I move on. You also have the option to save all of your document settings once you're done, so you can come back and reuse this document later. And then I'm just going to go down from top to bottom, left to right. So here you can change the width of your document as well as the units that you are working with. So, inches, pixels, centimeters, things like that. Here you can change your height, your orientation between portrait and landscape. If you check this artboards box, it will change your canvas once you get started into an artboard, which you can customize later. But we won't be really customizing this 8x11 size, so I'm going to leave this unchecked. Resolution is in pixels per inch. You can see that you can also change it to pixels to centimeter. We'll go with 72. We don't need it to be super high resolution for this project. Color mode, the one thing I want you guys to make sure you remember about this is that RGB color works best for web projects, and CMYK works best for printed projects. So I'm going to go ahead and change this into CMYK. We don't need to worry about the bit depth. Keep it at 8 bits. Background contents, here you can change between a solid fill background, a custom background, or a transparent background. If you're going to be making something that doesn't fit in your canvas perfectly, we're going to go ahead and keep it white. Don't need to worry about the advanced options right now, so I'm going to close those. Again, all you have to do really to make sure these settings are correct is choose letter and then change your color mode to CMYK color. You can leave your resolution at 300 pixels per inch if you want. Again though, that's a bit high, and I'm going to try to keep my file size small, so we're going to keep it at 72 for the sake of this class. Alright, so now that all of this looks good, I'm going to go ahead and click Create. Then after you click Create, Photoshop should open to a workspace that looks something like this. And actually, I want it to look, I'm going to go ahead, hit Reset Essentials. So, when you first open Photoshop, especially if you haven't opened it before, this should be the screen that you're greeted with. I'm gonna go ahead and maximize it. And what I did so that my screen looked like this and not what you guys saw at first, someone else must have been changing these settings before I got onto work. If you just come up here to your top navigation bar, click on Window, Workspace, and then Essentials Default. And if you do that and your screen still looks different than mine, you can come back up to Window, Workspace, Reset Essentials, and it should get you working with this screen. Just make sure that you have the same workspace as me, otherwise it's going to make it a bit difficult to follow along with the rest of the class. All right, so now that we have our workspace open, I'm just going to cover what each different panel does. So this main panel here with the big white board in the middle is your main workspace panel, otherwise known as your canvas or artboard panel. Here is where you'll be working with most of the tools to actually make corrections, make edits. Not all of your editing will be accomplished within this panel, but pretty much everything you do with the tools will be. So next up is the toolbar. Obviously, here you can find all of the different tools that you'll be working with within Photoshop. And I'm not going to get into these right now. This will be covered in stage 2. Just know that this panel on the far left is where you will find the toolbar. Next, we'll come up top. Here we have our tool options. So you'll notice as I change tools, our tool options, our tool settings will change. And again, more on this later, but for now, just know your toolbar is on the far left and your tool settings are up top below your main navigation bar. Notice also in your tool settings panel, you have the option to bring up that home screen. I'm not going to do that right now, as well as change some other presets depending on the tool you're using. All right, I guess the next one to talk about is the navigation bar. Here you can find a bunch of different options like you would find in other programs. Again, I'm not going to get into these too much right now. We'll cover some of it in stage 2, but just know that if I refer to the main navigation bar, it's this up here at the top of your screen. After that, we have our color panel. So here you have your color picker, which will be used with any tools that use color, like your paintbrush or your paint bucket. You have swatches, so kind of the same thing, just different palettes that you can start with instead of doing the color picker. Here you can do your gradients and then also some preset patterns. We're just going to keep that on the color picker. Below that, we have our properties and adjustments panel. So under properties, you will see all of the properties of your artboard or canvas, as well as some ruler and grid options. And then under adjustments, you'll find all of your adjustment layers. Again, more on this in stage 2, but for now, just know that this is the properties/adjustments panel. And then we have our layers panel. And here is where you can see all of the layers that you're working with in the order that they appear from top to bottom. So as we start working with a bunch of pictures, a bunch of different layers, they'll all show up here under the Layers tab. Under the Channels tab is where you will find the different colors depending on what color mode you're in, so you can turn off different things and kind of see what the picture looks like without reds, without blacks, in this case without, cyan, magenta, yellow, or black. You can play with the levels, things like that. Paths is where you will find all of your different vector paths, and we won't really get into what that means right now. All right, after that, at the far top right, we have our Learn panel. This is where you will find a bunch of different useful tutorials provided by Photoshop on different tools, different projects, different skills, all sorts of things. And we won't really be working with this in our class, but it's good to know that it's there. And then the final panel is the Libraries panel. So here you can access different files that you may have on your Creative Clouds library, as well as projects that you have saved on your computer in different Adobe programs. And then the very last panel that I still have yet to talk about is this panel here in between your canvas panel and your color, properties, adjustments, and layers panels. And this is your Windows panel. So you can see you'll start with your history panel, which shows all of the moves that you've made thus far. So far, I've only created a new document. If I were to start painting, it would track my brushstrokes, things like that. And then also within this panel, you'll see any other windows that you open up. So if I open the paragraph panel, you can see it'll pop up in the paragraph window, excuse me, it'll pop up in this Windows panel. All right, so that about covers it for our workspace layout. The last thing we need to address here in stage 1 is simply how to open up a photograph to get to editing inside of Photoshop. So what you want to do, there's 2 ways to approach this. You can either open an image or place an image. Either way, this process will start by coming up to the top left of your screen and choosing File. And the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is open an image. So you click on File and then Open. Navigate to the image you want to open. Just give me a second. Florence is the image I want. Click Open. Give it a second. And there we have it. The main thing to notice when you open an image instead of placing one is that Photoshop will open the image in a new canvas. And the canvas will be the same dimensions as the photograph itself. So you'll notice up here, we still have our blank canvas that we initially created, and then we have a separate canvas with the image of the river in Florence. If we wanted, however, to work on this canvas, that is when we would use place an image. And same thing, we'll come up here to File, and you'll note that there's 2 different options, place embedded and place linked. And before I choose one of these, I'm just going to sort of explain the difference between them. So basically, if you place an embedded image, it will create a copy of the image that you choose and paste it inside of Photoshop. And basically that image will exist inside of your Photoshop project. So if you were to, let's say, save your Photoshop project on a flash drive and open it up on a different computer, that image would still be there contained within the Photoshop file itself. If you were to choose place linked, however, what that does is basically creates a link to the image in its original location on the computer that you're working on. So the downside to this is if you were to, let's say, save your project on a flash drive and try to open it on a different computer, Photoshop would look for a link to the original file location on the original computer and it wouldn't be able to find it. The upside is that if you use linked images and you're only going to be using one computer and you know you're going to be working on the same computer, using linked images results in smaller Photoshop file sizes. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click Place Embedded. Same process as if you went to File Open. So you'll choose the image that you want and click Place, and you'll notice that it will place it for you. Before you're finished though, you can grab the sides or corners and adjust it that way, but one thing you will notice is that Photoshop maintains its aspect ratio. So the proportion between the width and height are going to be the same. Unless you hold Shift, that gives you the ability to freeform, but we don't want that. So I'm just going to leave this here. And when you're done, when you have your photo placed where you want, notice that you can also click and drag. Once you have your photo placed on your canvas the way you want it, you can either hit Enter or click the check mark right here at the top of the screen. Oh, there we go. And now it's placed. And you'll notice in our layers, we have both Florence as well as that original background canvas layer. And that does it for stage 1. I will see you guys in stage 2.